Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About Emotions. I'm Anshin Texter, licensed DEI trainer and consultant, and this is Pia Alt, licensed DEI trainer. Thank you, Pia, for joining me here.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
Today we're going to talk about jealousy and envy. These are two emotions that are really very close. They kind of encompass both the fear and the anger family. But it seems like there's also a lot of confusion around them and a lot of shame. Shame around feeling jealous or feeling envious of someone else. When you have too much envy, you might feel like you're being greedy. Although, honestly, if you feel like you're being greedy, you're probably okay. It's when you don't feel like you're being greedy, but you're just taking all the resources, the one it's not okay.
Yeah.
So, these two emotions, let's see. Envy is about mm, knowing what you want, knowing what's important to you. So there's the anger component of it, and taking action to make that a part of your life. So if you're feeling maybe financially insecure, then it might be your envy telling you, hey, I want more income. Could be very straightforward like that. Or it might say, hey, I want that promotion. I want more responsibility. I want more respect. Jealousy acts in a lot of the same way. Jealousy is about maintaining the quality of your relationships, and
Yeah.
it's about I think equality in relationships, feeling loved and making sure that you feel safe, and that you can trust the people you're in relationships with, both love relationships, but also friendships, partnerships, business relationships, that kind of thing, where you're in relationship with another person. So, Pia, you look like you have something.
Yeah, I was picking up on the security and the fairness. I mean, so that this is exactly where I've been wanting to talk about this for a while because I think that I'm feeling both emotions and I know that they're so connected. Both are about fairness, both are about security and protection. But whereas jealousy is more protection of your connection with other people socially and relationships with another human being, envy is maybe less about people and the relationship, but more about your access to self-preservation and resources and having something that will keep you safe, I guess, or ensure that you have what you need. And I think especially in this particular COVID situation type, I was telling you earlier before we got on the call that I was feeling both emotions come up, but I was not paying attention to them. I was more concerned and busy with anxiety and uncertainty and worry and anger and grief because we've lost our freedom and nothing is the same. And then here comes jealousy and envy creeping up all the time. They're like in my ears, and I'm like, go away. There's no room for these emotions at the moment. Why are you coming up? And then I realized, as late as today, I realized when I got an email from my aunt and uncle who live in a different country than me, and they live in Denmark, and they're able to go out, and things are open, and they can go to the parks and the beach and everything. And I thought, this is not fair, right? And there we are, boom, envy right away. I was like, why can they do that and we can't here, we can't go out here in Dubai? We, in fact, they're restricting our movements even further as we speak, to flatten the curve and whatnot. But it dawned on me that I am faced in so many situations with jealousy and envy. I can't be with people that I want to be with. Other people can be with those people, right? I can't be with my sons, but my aunt and uncle can be with my sons because they live in the same country. Or I can't go to places that they can. So it's really, really, really relevant right now. I think it's relevant for a lot of people, and I think it's important to distinguish between the two because they are so close. They're the two emotions are so close. I think we call them, siblings, in fact. But to distinguish what you have to do with both of the emotions when they come up, one or the other, what would be some of the practices to let it flow? What would be some of the things that you have to pay attention to in terms of their gifts? That's really where I want to dig into today, to just really understand that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great place to start because, well, so you were talking about how envy and jealousy are about security and fairness, access to resources for envy anyway. Jealousy is more about having secure relationships. And the questions are the same for both of the emotions. What has been betrayed and what must be made right? And with this, it makes me think about betraying ourselves. Oftentimes, like I was talking about earlier, we feel shamed for feeling envious of someone, for wanting what someone else has. And that's a very, I think, Christian belief, do not covet. By the way, I'm totally not Christian. Forgive me if I butcher these things.
I am totally, I mean, that's how I was raised and conditioned. I'm not paying attention to it so much anymore. But yeah, there's a great deal of shame in a lot of the religions, really, whether it's, Christianity or Islam or, Judaism. I think there's a lot of shame that goes along with the interpretation of that, of those religions.
Right. They have like very deep beliefs that can be turned into shaming messages if they're not truly your beliefs, right?
Yeah.
But when you ask the question, what has been betrayed, I don't know that that's the right question to ask in this situation, because there's a lot going on that we don't have control over, right? And I think about this as a self-betrayal, as in I have repressed my envy for so long that I don't know what I want anymore. I don't know what I'm working towards. And the thing here, I keep hearing myself say it, envy is about what I want, what I value, what's important to me. Those are the questions for anger. Those are the values of anger as well. It's what's important to you. What do I value? What must be protected and restored? There's a healthy dose of anger in envy, right? I mean, envy, I think, maybe also has a bit of anxiety in it, in the sense of this is what you're looking forward to in the future, right? You want to have this eventually, or maybe you want it right now.
Yeah.
So what if we ask the question, what must be made right?
Well, I think that that's perhaps more appropriate because there's an inequality at the moment, right? Even if you were to go back to our situation in the world right now, there are some countries that are faring worse than others. So if we take it away from being a very personal, selfish kind of situation and look at the bigger picture, I think the jealousy and envy come up right now because of the situation we're in. But if we just forget about ourselves at the moment and look at holistically at the at the whole globe as people, there's a lot of countries that are over COVID and that they have the freedom, they have the resources, they have the ability, and they have maybe perhaps already made some things right. And then there are other countries and states that haven't gotten there yet, and they're still working on making it right, if we were just to use the analogy of COVID. But in general, once you've found that, once you realize what it is that you need, and I think people need different things right now, right? We're talking about people who need medical attention, people who need money or resources because they've lost their job, or people who need a job, period, versus others who are more fortunate to be able to sort of sail through it. That's, I think, where it must be right, that equality and support and help so that we can all get through this and get to the other side, right? And that's, I think that's one of the learnings. There's been so much disparity in the haves and have-nots previously, and could we learn from that when we ask the question, what must be right? So it's not what must be right for me, what must be made right for me and my closest, but maybe looking a little bit broader and saying, what must be made right for humankind?
And you make a really good point about how our different situations are kind of highlighting the inequalities that we're living in right now. My husband was talking to me the other day about how these companies are making their lower wage workers go back to work, but they are keeping their CEOs and higher wage workers at home because it's too dangerous for them. And
Yeah.
it's such an unfair, unjust situation that no wonder jealousy and envy are out in the open these days.
Yeah.
It's so appropriate. I mean, because we live in such an unequal world these days, both financially, but socially as well.
Mhm. Yeah. I was talking to a colleague, and it was actually, I was kind of coaching. She's a peer of mine, but I was coaching her because she said, I think I just need to bounce some things off somebody. And she said, I'm really struggling because I don't know if I'm going to lose my job. I don't know if I've got the finances to sort of, get through this. And I also don't know if my health is going to, so she's got some underlying a virus that's just kind of been sort of festering for a long time. Not that virus, but a different virus. And we broke it down to say, well, what do you need right now? What would get you through the next month, and then 2 months, and then 3 months? And she said, I think I really need to sit down and look at what do I not need? So we were asking the question, what must be right? But another question to ask would be, what can I get rid of right now so that I can get back to the basics? She
Mm.
doesn't need a gym membership, perhaps, or maybe she doesn't need, whatever.
An entertainment budget.
Yeah, I mean, she's really having to look over her budget, right? She says, I do know I have a horse, and I do know that I want to take care of my horse, and that's not going to change. So that's where the priority is. But could I forego the gym membership and then, balance it that way? And I think that's just so basic. But if we all need to take stock of what can we actually get rid of right now? What's not important to us? And what's the minimum we need? And I think that takes us back to the origin of where jealousy and envy served us as mankind, millennials ago when we were cave people. It was about survival. It was about what's the minimum we need. We need a small campfire to cook. We need to hunt for our food, and not more than we need, right? Just for the day or for the week.
Right.
And we need to survive. So we need to procreate, which means we need to find a mate. And that was what it was all about, right? It was about fighting over the right uh, people to mate with so that the genes could be strong enough to survive. It was really literally about survival. Of course, we're not going around going, who can I find that I can make sure that my lineage is, we fall in love. It's a love story now, but it probably wasn't, 40,000 years ago. It was really about keeping the tribe alive and keeping, that community strong. And it was about who can lead the tribe, and what's the minimum that we need, in order to kind of contain that. But it's carried into now modern world where, well, I've got a new car and my neighbor is envious of my car, and there's another girlfriend that just got a new pair of shoes, which I love, and do I really need that? So it's a modern world, and I can see where keeping up with the Joneses has definitely taken a different shift to where it's keeping up with the Joneses in caveman times. It's a little bit different. But you're right, we're not allowed to sit with that jealousy and envy. It's not becoming for women to feel jealous or envious, but it's okay for a man to go, I want that too, and I'm going to fight for it. perhaps. I don't want to throw the gender card in there, but that's reality, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, men and women are allowed to have different emotions, right? Men are allowed to be jealous. Oh, he's just a jealous man. But if a woman is jealous, then that's like a mark against her character, as if there's something wrong with her,
Mm-hmm.
right? For wanting to be in a secure relationship. And essentially that's what jealousy is. It's there because it is showing you who you feel safe with. And if you don't feel trust, like if you don't trust this person, maybe there's a reason for it, right? Maybe that's a red flag, or maybe that's something that's really important to you that you need to look at. So there's
Yeah.
probably a reason that you're feeling like you don't trust this person. So, I mean, our emotions are really smart. They're working
They
all the
are.
time, and they are
Absolutely.
working without our conscious knowledge a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the way I work with my emotions, I kind of, I usually end up working backwards. I'll like do a little body scan and check in with myself and notice, okay, well, I'm feeling bit depressed today. I'm feeling a little frustrated and angry. I'm definitely feeling sad. And oh, there's anxiety too. Hi, guys, what's going on? Right? So they're kind of like up and existing in my personal space here. And here's my brain over here, like, burp, burp, what's going on? And so bringing those two together is how I've learned to check in with kind of the core of my being and what's really important to me. Um,
Yeah.
how am I doing with accessing resources? How am I doing with maintaining my values? How am I doing with getting the things that I need? That's
Mm-hmm.
ultimately that's what it's about. But something you said earlier about when we were living in prehistoric times and how our emotions evolved with us, I think that there was, since we were so much closer to life and death, right? I think that there was sense of a greater sense of valuing our resources, and with that, respecting where they come from. Something that was really unique with the evolution of humans was the discovery of essentially spiritual practices alongside our other the other things that we have developed, right? So not only were we working through the Bronze Age or the Stone Age or those different prehistoric periods, we were also developing more of a spiritual idea of how we came to be, a deeper meaning beyond our day-to-day lives. And jealousy and envy, they tell us what we need, what's really important to us, what we need to get to feel safe and secure and like we can continue on. But these days, it seems like for the most part, our basic needs are taken care of. And yet we still have those emotions, right? We are only human, and our emotions
Absolutely.
are still working. But I think you make a really good point. It's like a recalibration of what's really important, right? A reprioritizing is happening. And maybe in the past we've gotten caught up with, having all of the streaming subscriptions and reading all of the books or having the new car or having all the cool shoes. Whereas the situation we're in right now is really showing us, well, is any of that really important?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? If it, I think it's about taking stock and saying, what is the basic resource I need to get through this? What do I need for the next 3 months? Do I have what it takes to pay the bills, to pay the rent, whatever? If not, where do I need to go for help? Right. So it is about finding out where the resources are coming from. And I think that there's some intuition in that as well. And then also when the shame comes, that you have the ability to ask for help without feeling that shame. That's a real, I think, hard thing for a lot of people to get over, right? The pride, the sort of stoic, well, I should be able to take care of myself and my family, and now I can't. But I don't want to ask for help because that shows weakness. Um, it brings a whole lot of other emotions with it, right? But to get back to basics and figure out, you know, how we get through this, I think is going to be the thing that's going to keep us grounded. I hope, for most people. It was funny because the other day I also saw a Facebook post that one of my friends have just become a grandmother. And my kids are getting to the age where I guess I could sort of potentially be a grandmother, but they both decided that, well, one has decided not to have kids right now, and the other one is definitely not ready, wants them, but not ready. So, and there's no rush. But I felt a little thing of envy as well there. It's like, oh my God, she's a grandmother already, you know, and why am I not there? And then I thought, and when you ask the question, what must be made right? I'm not ready to be a grandmother yet. You know, it will come. But isn't it funny how we still go back to this? What about the lineage? What about keeping the tribe, you know, ongoing,
Oh,
and the family name and the heritage? It's so important to us. Family and heritage, I think, is so important to us.
yeah. I mean, well, it's clearly it's a value that we both share, right? I don't know that it is the same for everybody, although the people who claim that they don't care about those things, I the people I don't, you know, it's not something you ever talk about, right? And the people I know who have decided not to have children, I don't know that it's a matter of um, I don't want to continue my family name and heritage, but maybe they want to continue it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, having kids is a big commitment.
Absolutely. It's a big commitment. And I also think that for every generation, we're bringing kids into a different world. And right now, if I was to look at my sons bringing a kid in this chaos, I was like telling them, don't, just wait. I
Yeah.
mean, because really, we can barely, you know, you can barely take care of yourselves. But I guess at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong or good or bad timing, but it's just, you're right. It's a big responsibility. It was a big responsibility when I did it, you know, 25 years ago. And now they're at that age, and I'm thinking, wow, they're nowhere near where I was. But yet I feel that my peers who are all becoming grandparents, because we're all hitting our, you know, mid 50s, I'm like, I feel like I'm missing out on something. Like I'm missing out on the joy that they're sharing. And that's really interesting because yeah, it's got nothing to do with resources or self-preservation in that instance. It's just about them being and feeling something that I'm not being and feeling right now.
And maybe it's showing you something that you want, right? You're looking forward to having that potentially in your life. And
Yeah, yeah,
that,
of course.
I guess this is something I'm kind of curious about. If this is something that's kind of like striking a nerve for you now, would it be something that that you would want to seek out independent of your sons, right? I mean, just, but is it, or is it that familial connection that would make it so special, right? It's not just, oh, I'm holding a tiny baby, this is incredible. It could be, I'm holding this tiny baby who I'm related to. And I think there's this human fascination of, well, let's look at this human. Let's see how we looked alike, right? Like, what does this person have of mine that I've passed on? There's definitely this, I really hesitate to call it an ego thing. It just seems like it's such a fundamental part of being a human. Although I would
It's so relational. It's
wager that
so
people would
relational.
disagree with me that they perhaps don't care about that, or that's not one of the things that's important to them.
Yeah. That's a really good question. And thank you so much for bringing that to my attention, because I don't think that I've thought about why I'm being jealous or envious of my friend becoming our grandmother. I think it was getting caught up in the moment and seeing their joy and having that, you know, taking walks with the baby carriage and all that. It's interesting because right now I'm not living close to my son, so I wouldn't see the baby anyway. I wouldn't be able to be close to it. And then that would probably bring me sadness, you know. So right now it's probably good that it's not happening. But I don't think I've thought about what it is that is bringing up the envy. Is it that I don't have it to be relational myself, or is it just the joy of, oh, here's another baby and isn't that cute? So I think I need to reflect on that and find out what really is that. Digging deeper, what does it mean to me? What does that being a grandmother mean to me? Or
Mm-hmm.
what would it?
And is it even really about being a grandmother, or maybe is it about having a little more joy in your life, like instances for joy? I'm thinking
Yeah,
about this in terms of feeling envious of people having certain things. Maybe I don't necessarily want those things, but I want the emotions associated with those things, right? Like, oh, I want to feel more contentment in my life, so I want to do a big project so that I'll
yeah,
feel content at the end of it, right?
yeah,
Rather than recognizing, oh, if I want to feel more contentment, then I can do a bunch of little projects, right? Or I might need to take a look at my underlying contracts and see if there's one there. Perhaps I have a shaming contract that's keeping me from feeling contentment for all the things that I am doing, for all the things that
yeah,
I am succeeding at. So I think that's
yeah.
a good kind of arrow that we get from feeling jealousy and envy. It may not
Mm.
necessarily translate into exactly the same thing. I know that I have friends who are having more babies, and I'm very happy with one child. But I still, when I see them, posting their cute little wrinkled faces on Facebook or something, there is a kind of a stab of jealousy. I'm like, oh my God, it's a new human. That's amazing. I want to create something amazing like that. Right? If
Yeah,
I were to really examine those emotions, I think it's more a desire to create, right, and to have a hand in making something truly beautiful than it
mm,
is in wanting to add another child to my family and go through 9 months of pregnancy hell and then another 18 months of running around after a small human grub. So,
yeah,
like, I mean, I'm trying to really keep my feet grounded with this because hormones. And look at what are the emotions behind it. And I think that that is what can really give you the insight and the information that you're really looking for, the thing that you're really looking for, rather than thinking, oh gosh, I want to have more fun. That person on the dirt bike looks like they're having a lot of fun, so I want to get a dirt bike.
I wonder if it's also a sense of validation. You know, I need this in my life in order to whatever, right? So
Mhm.
validation, fulfillment. There's really a lot to reflect on there.
So in order to
Yeah,
have made it, right? So, to
yeah,
prove that I am the person I thought I would become, I'm going to get this cool new car, or I'm going to have the job title that says that I am vice president or COO
yeah.
or I don't know, whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that that may be true for a lot of people. You know, they need that validation, they need that identity in order to, you know, be something, be somebody, which that really goes beyond the emotions and gets into, you know, self-regard and self-awareness. And I think the more self-awareness you do have, the more emotional intelligence you will have to be able to kind of suss out what the emotions that are coming up for you will be. But it's really interesting that that there's so many things around me right now that are triggering me in this,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know about you, how you feel, but I'm feeling extra triggered right now from all kinds of emotions. Um,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was funny that I ignored these two. There are probably other emotions that I'm ignoring at the moment. But these two were top of mind for sure. Yeah.
Well, my thoughts on this are that I think that now that we don't have as many distractions, we are not having as many human interactions. We don't have as many kind of day-to-day events that are happening to think about and to reflect on, or to kind of take up our brain space. that we have more time, more internal space to really feel and consider our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if there was something that we were pushing off before or distracting ourselves from before we started adhering to the shelter in place um, actions, then now we don't have that. I think of it kind of as static, right? You know, we have this much bandwidth and this much is taken up by the static of doing the daily things that, you know, they provide input, output, that kind of thing. And then you have this much bandwidth for yourself, for self-reflection and the personal attention. And I don't mean that in a physical, I'm going to make myself beautiful way, although you could do that too. I'm just meaning it in more of a emotional awareness way. What am I feeling right now? And what is that related to? And I feel like this is a time for people to go really deep in what is going on for them, you know, um, because I think we're faced with a lot of situations or maybe cyclical patterns, and we're in a place where we don't have an escape from that necessarily, unless we are very willfully, consciously escaping from it. Right. But it's coming around. I know I've been very much faced with some of my patterns where I'm noticing these things, and it's been painful, but it's also been really an opportunity for growth. So I can see how being in this time of sheltering in place could be a time that is really stressful and scary, because maybe you're feeling emotions coming up that you've been running away from for years. And perhaps you don't know how to deal with them. You don't know what to do with them. So many of us are told to not trust our emotions, to hide our emotions, to repress our emotions, to pretend like they're not happening. We're told that we shouldn't be feeling a certain way. And this is one of the things that I've been working through myself for years. It just astonishes me how many layers of it's not okay to feel what you're feeling that I've taken on, and I see it out around me all the time, where people are telling each other, telling themselves, it's not okay to feel what I'm feeling, and that's absolutely wrong. It's great that you're feeling what you're feeling. It gives you information. It may not be appropriate for the situation, right? And that might be a good time for repression, but it is so appropriate for you to feel what you're feeling. It has incredible, invaluable information for you, and that's the only way you're going to learn about yourself and what's really important to you, you know, because your emotions they're a manifestation of your values and the things that are truly important to you. So if I was listening to a podcast the other day about people who were in relationship, either getting into new relationships or maybe their relationships were ending in the midst of all of this. And I can see how your emotions during this time would be so heightened, because we don't have a whole lot of other things to distract ourselves with. But I feel like all emotions are heightened right now, right? There's definitely the panic going on, although it's definitely less than the first few weeks. There's the panic, there's the anxiety of planning for the future, like how am I going to take care of myself in 2 months? Like, am I going to have an income? There's the depression of, well, this is not working for me, right? Is it ever going to end? My energy has gone out the window because I'm so stuck right now. And then there's jealousy and envy saying, you know what I really wish for? I really wish that I didn't have this job, or I really wish that I had more time to myself, or I really wish that I felt more at peace with who I am. And I wish I knew how to make it right with myself. I really wish I hadn't estranged all my friends. I really wish I had more friends. Like, it's just getting you in touch with all these things that are actually very important to you. And maybe we haven't been paying attention to them, because it could be that there are, shaming contracts or messages behind that saying, no, you shouldn't have this, you couldn't have this, you don't deserve this. So this is just getting us in touch with those kind of scary parts of ourselves. It's not necessarily true, right? It just requires some self-reflection. And that's what's so scary, because it can change your idea of yourself and who you are. Oh my gosh. And that's where grief can come in and help you release completely these ideas of who you thought you were or who you thought you should be, and
Yeah.
give you space to be who you really are.
You definitely have hit so many different things. I think that we need another podcast on this, because but yeah, it is really emotional, and one of the things that you highlighted was that we have been conditioned our whole life to not feel the emotions, or to avoid them, or to suppress them, and to not acknowledge that they're there. If they are there, when they come up, then we must do something completely different than we would normally instinctively do, and it's not natural.
Right.
And we're surrounded by people who just, it's amazing. But at work and my peers and just around me, all I hear are these, oh, just snap out of it, just move on, it's it could be worse. And I'm like, it probably could be worse, but while I'm in it, why don't we just sit with it, right? It's like, you don't go down a river and go in the rapids and go, oh, well, there's a rapid. I'm just going to stay here. Like, it doesn't work that way. It moves you, right? You have to stop. Well, you probably could and grab onto a branch, but how long would you have the strength?
Yeah.
So it's like, why not just go with it and then see what happens? And, somehow it'll work out, right? You'll end up at the end of the river somewhere when it feeds into something else. And hopefully you will, not be too banged up on the way. And I think even if you are banged up on the way, that's where you learn, right? That's where you learn to navigate better, to plan better, to protect yourself better. And you can do that by learning the words that go with the emotions, the vocabulary, the gifts, the messages, the information, and just let it happen, right? Really, truly sit with the emotions and kind of just take a bath with them, even like soak yourself in them, right? Because that's going to give you the armor to handle the obstacles better next time they come up. So, yeah.
Yeah, you'll be armed with information that your emotions are there to help you. They're not there to hurt you. The truth they might be bringing up can be painful.
Yeah.
But it's
and
because you've been keeping it from yourself, right? That's
yeah.
why it's so painful, is because you've been trying to live in a way that's not your truth.
Yeah, it's not convenient. It's painful. It's not comfortable. It's really, I would rather not, right? But they're true. They're real, whether they are painful or uncomfortable.
And after you go through it, I just gotta say, I went through an emotional cycle over the last few weeks, and it was tremendously painful and difficult. And I felt like I was only halfway functioning for a while because I was so busy trying to resist the emotions, resist what they were trying to tell me. I truly did fear for my sense of self-identity. I ended up having to let a piece go that was no longer true of me, that had never been true of me. I just thought it was really important, and it felt so scary to reconsider my picture of myself, that I was using every last ounce of energy I had to hold on to this image I had of myself, rather than to recognize that it was already gone, that that I had already let it go, that it was no longer part of my life. And once I was finally able to let go, and okay, I can't anymore, right? I just gave up. I couldn't hold on anymore. And once I was able to do that and cry and let it all out, then there was this sense of spaciousness and a sense of possibility of opening up, of like, well, okay, well, that's no longer me, but there's all this. And this feels more right, more true to who I am. And if I want, I also have the possibility of creating a new contract that is in alignment with my values. And it's a current contract that's realistic and appropriate for who I am and what I want. It's just a process, right? It's just this ongoing process that we're all in the midst of. And as you learn tools to help you become more aware of your emotions, help you work with your emotions, then that process can become more conscious and like have shorter intervals between being triggered or something coming up, like, oh, I'm feeling really a big need to distract myself around this, right? Between something coming up and coming around and leaning into it and surrendering to the emotion and the emotional truth that it holds.
Yeah. That's maybe a good lead in to sort of wrap up. What practices do you do for the various emotions, and especially for envy and jealousy? For sure, the boundary setting is one, right? Setting proper boundaries because of anger and fear being an element in it. But also, I think grounding and just taking solace in the fact that the more aware you are of yourself, like, so what I was saying before, self-awareness, self-regard, that insight into really who you are and what drives you and what sets you off, I think that there's a bit of grounding in that, along with the boundaries, can be really, really helpful in order to just sort of let it sit with you. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're just trying to understand how to let it flow better. So it really, for honoring jealousy and envy, I think it really comes down to your boundaries with yourself rather than others, whereas anger is more with boundaries with others. But this is really about yourself, and what are you willing to accept and make different.
Yeah, so there's a shame piece in it as well of what your internal guidelines are.
Definitely. Yeah.
Pia, thank you. I really, really love this conversation. It was so fun to go on the Wild Rapids ride with you.
Literally, yeah, or mentally, or metaphorically.
I can really see it. I was like, oh, I'm on the raft. I'm holding on to this branch for dear life.
Yeah, we're going down. We're navigating that rapid river. Yeah, thank you. I've loved it. It was a really nice conversation, and I hope it helps others reflect and think about what comes up for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And all your emotions are valid here. That's the thing. That's all we're trying to impart is listen to all of your emotions. They have stuff. They have really good gifts and juicy things.
They do. It is very juicy.